Grace.
And I'm Ek.
And this is Off the Duff.
As we head off into the new year, we of course started thinking about optimism, because that's how you start off a new year. And
hopefully, right?
hopefully, usually with resolutions and stuff. But let's just address the elephant in the room here in the U.S. And the political climate.
Is this where we begin openly weeping?
I think now more than ever, we need optimism. This is something I get asked a lot. Aren't you just burying your head in the sand? And being optimistic is not just burying your head in the sand. It's basically knowing that, yeah, there's a lot of crap going on in the world around you. There is a lot of bad, but there's also a lot of good, and choosing to react to it in an optimistic, positive way in the ways that you can, and knowing what you can and can't change, that to me is optimism.
When I was younger and a very much a pessimistic person, I used to look at people who were optimistic as if they were freaks. And that's what I cope. What I didn't realize was exactly this distinction that you're making, is that there's a difference between blind optimism and the optimism of choice. And I finally learned how to connect with the choice of optimism as opposed to just allowing myself to believe the whole world was going to shit. Our power, I believe, comes from how we choose to respond to our circumstances.
Yeah.
And we can choose to respond even to terrifying or frightening or horrifying or depressing situations and circumstances in a loving and optimistic way. And we can choose to look for the good in people. We can choose to look for the lessons and ways that we can grow through difficult situations. And I think that those kinds of things can help you become optimistic. I think that it can be a rallying cry, that if you don't like the way things are right now, that you have the optimism and empowerment to know that you can change it. And then get up off your duff and make the effort to do so. Without some optimism, it's very easy to become paralyzed and to hide under the blankets.
I haven't always been that way. I've always been a very happy person. But
Yeah.
as far as the optimism, I really, about 10 or 12 years ago, I had this sort of epiphany that my life is everything. I have control over what happens in my life. And I think at the core of that is optimism, that it will be a good life because I chose to make it so. Like I say, the core value, I would say, is an optimistic outlook on life, that I can make things happen in my life to better my life. There are bad things that happen, but how I react to them.
Exactly.
And I think even just with this show, one of the things we wanted to do was put some good back in the world.
Yes.
And yeah, is it going to change what's happening? Is it going to stop wars? No. Have wars always been going on? Yes. What can I do to change that? I think it actually makes me feel more empowered. Like some people, they think, oh, you're just hiding in the sand, so it'll be fine, it'll be fine. But for me, it's more of a, no, that gives me power, because I know that I can make a change should I desire to. I don't ever feel helpless. And I think that's what's happening with a lot of people right now. It basically gives me a base of knowing that I can make the best of my situation, no matter what that situation is. I don't know. I haven't been tested to the limits, but every time I do get tested to the, what I think is, this is the limit, and this is something where I thought I would break, but I only bend, and I realize it's because I have that base of optimism there.
I think that when we do go through really hard times too, it gives us an opportunity. We talked about this a little bit in our joy episode. It makes appreciating the good things that much more important. When we have suffered losses, my family has suffered many, many very heartbreaking losses, and because we have felt pain and loss to that depth, we are that much more likely to really embrace the good things. It's not that we're not aware that the bad things happen. And you still have to deal with them. Ultra aware, exactly. Yeah. But it gives us that ray of hope, ray of light to kind of hang on to in order to keep getting up out of bed every day. And I think that there's worth in believing in the best in people. And believing that somewhere at the core of humanity, there is a turning of the tide. And
I like to feel that most people are good.
Yeah, at heart, you know, I
majority.
mean, and maybe that's not true of everyone, but I really do need to believe that. And if I want to see better things in the world, then I need to offer better things to the world. And I do think that that is a very empowering concept.
Yeah, you can't be a good warrior if you don't have the equipment for that. And, you know, you can't be out there saying, I'm going to put good into the world if you haven't learned to appreciate the good that is there and only focus, say, on the bad. Like what we were talking about in the gratitude video about how you kind of build up an immunity, you know, so that you can be optimistic about a lot of stuff, so that when there's that day where something terrible happens, have your emotions. Go through go through it. It's fine. Like, you don't want to sit there going, oh, well, no big deal. This terrible thing happened somewhere else. It's like, this terrible thing happened. Let's feel it. Can I do anything about it? It's a world away. And can I do something? Can I
donate $50 to relief aid?
Exactly. Can I donate? Can I do something so that it doesn't happen again? You know, or whatever.
Or that the people who that has happened to are somehow taken care of in some way.
Right. If you haven't had that optimistic base that whole time, you might just be like, the world, because I see this a lot on social media, it's like, the world is awful and it's going to hell. I'm like, well, I feel like it's probably always been going to hell. We just know about a lot of it more than we used to.
Might be
you know,
hell.
It might be, who knows? This might be as good as it gets, folks, you know? And so, but to know that you can get through it, and even if for a while, you just need to wallow in that. But because you have this base, again, that immunity, you can let yourself have that, oh my God, this is terrible thing. Because at the base, you're going to wake up and go, yeah, it's really not the end of the world. It might seem like it, but now how do I make it not be the end of the world?
I think having optimism means having faith in yourself.
And others.
And others, yeah. Another one of my favorite authors, Robert Anton Wilson, was asked about optimism one time, and he said, well, you know, the difference between an optimist and a pessimist is, you know, a pessimist believes that the world is going to shit, and there's nothing you can do about it, and so they're suffering all of the time.
Yeah,
that's where they live, is in this concept that the world is going to shit. The world might be going to shit, but the optimist at least is having a good time in the process.
One of my favorite YouTubers, Hannah Hart, has her whole reckless optimism as opposed to, like you said, blind optimism.
Right.
She said, it's like if you're at the airport and you're standing waiting for your luggage and your luggage isn't showing up and it's not showing up. Blind optimism is like, it's gonna come.
It'll be here any minute.
It's gonna be here any minute. It's gonna come. Reckless optimism is, it might not show up, but I'm gonna have a damn good vacation anyway.
I'm gonna be okay.
Yeah, it's gonna be fine. I think that's, and to me,
if nothing else, it's an adventure.
It's an adventure. You'll have a good
You'll
story
have an
out of it. Is what
adventure,
we always say.
Story at the end of it.
Well, and that's true, because I just feel like it's not going to be what I thought it was. But I think also I tend not to have too many great expectations exactly how things are supposed to be, so that I'm not as disappointed or very flexible when things don't go the way that I want them to go.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, does everybody consider themselves to be optimistic? And if they are, how do you cultivate that? How do you tap into that? And if you're not, why not? Or what do you want to be able to do to make that, you know, to be able to tap into that? Are we just hiding our head in the sand? Is that how you feel? And maybe, like I said, I get told that a lot. And so I'd be just curious to see what everybody's opinions are on being optimistic in a world that's a little bit uncertain, especially right now, but has always been, but just more so maybe
degree,
right now.
For some people, it has been a very uncertain world for a very long time, and I think that some of us are only now realizing that.
Yeah.
I do believe, and I think we both believe, that optimism is a skill worth cultivating in your life, and I think it has the potential to let you live your life more fully and off your duff.
This might be as good as it gets, folks.